Let's hit another big FA Cup matchup. That was between Chelsea, Crystal Palace. Chelsea 1, Palace 0. Welcome to West London, Mayra Ramirez. What did you see in this one?
Chelsea had 76% of the ball, and it felt like it. This, to me, felt like an Ashley Lawrence game. She was a menace running down the wing. She was creating a lot of opportunities, getting the ball into the danger area really nicely throughout the match. I feel like Palace's keeper, 27-year-old English goalkeeper Demi Lambourne, she had her work cut out for her in this match, partially because of all the chances Lawrence was helping create. And she made some nice saves and was able to get off her line in a few big moments. And speaking of welcome to West London, Mayra Ramirez, a lot of Lambourne's work was just trying to keep Ramirez from wreaking havoc in the middle of the box. So I think it was an entertaining match. I think if you're Chelsea, getting a win in the FA Cup is great. You're on to the next round. But this is not like the Premier League's Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace in women's football is a championship side. So You walk out of there with a 1-0 win. If you're looking at it optimistically from Chelsea's side, you're pretty clearly trying to get Ramirez comfortable in there. And, buddy, let's just say later in the match, she looked pretty comfortable.
I mean, it's hard to talk about the match without talking about the goal, which wasn't even like a back heel. It was like a back foot rake. She's hitting with the bottom of her cleat.
Yep.
And just perfectly skipping that up. I mean, it was an incredible shot. Impossible to describe if you didn't see it. If you didn't see it, please go watch it. I mean, it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's like I think you're right. I don't think her heel hits it, but it like the motion that she makes is like a back heel flick, but she manages to turn it into like a chip from close range. And as you can tell by Dino and I trying to describe this, as Dino said, you just fucking look it up on YouTube because it's incredible to see. And it's coming in from one of those Ashley Lawrence crosses. So it's coming at pace. And she had just to have the presence of mind. Yeah, to be able to turn and then get your foot to it. It was as audacious as it was expertly executed.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even have the creativity in that moment to be like, oh yeah, this is how this ball is going to go in. It's an unbelievable play.
Yeah, and so slick too. It was just like,
oh yeah,
yeah, I did that. It's like, yeah, first goal. And shout out to the announcer. I love when they use the opening an account to describe
love that.
One's first goal on a new squad. Just it hits the mark perfectly. Mayra Ramirez has definitely had herself a year. Her, I think, alongside Linda Caicedo, Lacey Santos, they had a really good attack on the Colombia side. Took that team to the quarterfinals. They played your Lionesses really tough before ultimately falling short 2-1 in a pretty competitive, kind of scary-ish match. Now, what I'm excited about, Colombia is in the field of 12 for the Olympics. And I mean, if Mayra Ramirez is going to look like this, I mean, when I looked it up, I couldn't believe she was 24 years old.
Yeah.
Because she just seems like Draymond out there. like you can't do anything with her physically. But she's still probably at the very, very front edge of her prime. And just a player like that in a small field type tournament is just real scary because she can turn it up. I think, Chawinga's probably also like that.
Yep.
A one-person fast break offense. I'm excited to see what she does at Chelsea, but the Olympics also pretty captivating too, considering they're one of the 12.
Dude, that is a great fucking call. Like, it was pretty clear to see throughout the match. And I know, we did say that Crystal Palace is a championship side, but she looked physically unmatched out there.
Yep.
You could even make the argument she looked like physically the best Chelsea player too, though. So, I mean, it's not all that she's playing against a team in a lower division. She looks strong and fast and confident every second that she was out there. And I think you're totally right. I mean, you get in a little field of 12 in something like the Olympics, you get cooking in that first match. Now the confidence is high, and you already know the creative flair that Colombia plays with. And like you said, you have Caicedo and other players on that side. That could be something.
To bring it back to Chelsea real quick, she's probably the perfect Sam Kerr number 9 replacement, especially when you consider, like you mentioned, Lawrence, Girl Wrighton, awesome game from her. I mean, she's just clinical.
Always.
Canarud on the other side. LJ, maybe if she spends a little bit more time in that number 10 spot. Neve Charles, definitely the ability to put the ball where she wants it into dangerous areas. Mayra Ramirez is just going to she's just going to get chances. And I think you give her chances and she's just as deadly as pretty much anybody. I mean, that finish who else is doing that? Like, who else is
Yeah.
even trying that? There might be one or two in the world, and then to be able to execute it at that level and just be cool as shit afterwards is like, it's kind of it's kind of intimidating for fans of other teams to kind of think about that. So we'll keep an eye on Chelsea. Anything else you saw in this one?
I think it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, I think you're onto something when you talk about her being a great Sam Kerr replacement, and now you think about that for the Champions League. Now, what if you have a Ramirez official rotation there at number 9? And it's like that thing we always joke about with these great teams. It's like, oh, we brought up this one player. Thank God. If you're the opponent, you're like, okay, I'm done with that. And now all of a sudden, me official's coming on for the last 25 minutes of the match or something like that. I mean, that kind of depth could go a long way.
The podcast that I mentioned earlier, the Sam Mewis, Lindsey Horan interview, they were recounting some time on the U.S. Women's National Team under Jill Ellis, where they were like, all right, so sometimes it's going to be you, sometimes it's going to be you. You're good at this, you're good at this, and this is just how it's going to be. And both had the same recollection of that with regard to being like, yeah, we were both just like, we just wanted to win so badly. And that was the vibe, in 2019. Very, very cool podcast. I learned quite a bit about, some of the stuff that we were talking about last week with regard to Lindsey Horan's comments about U.S. Women's National Team. She had some funny stuff about the red card. She was asked best player she's ever played with. I can't remember all of them. She mentioned Carolyn Seeger. Wendy Renard was one of the 4. And then the best player she ever played against, she said it was Emma Majri, who she now plays with at Lyon. Thought that was pretty interesting.
Interesting.
Definitely go check that out.
So I have not yet listened to it. I am very fascinated that those two basically have a lot of overlap. Like when Mewis was in her prime and Horan coming up, they're both essentially about as good as you can get as number 10s. So I think that positional overlap is super interesting. And I want to say another thing that Jill Ellis was always great at, that she did in 15 and 19. In 15, she had an older Abby Wambach. And she was just like, Abby, can you give me 20 today? Can you give me 25 today? Mm-hmm. And you bring her on at the end, and you're able to do something. And then in the 19 World Cup, it was an older Carly Lloyd. And it was like, obviously, I think Carly Lloyd's mentality was, I'll play the whole fucking 90. But she was like, okay, Carly, you got to give, like, I know you want to win. Can you give me 30? Can you give me 35? Can you give me 25? So when you're playing tournament football, you have to have those wrinkles that you throw in when everybody is just dead-legged out there.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be exciting to see what happens at the Olympics right around the corner here, getting closer by the day. Some upcoming matches this weekend. Chelsea, first in the league, take on your Blues of Man City, currently sitting in second in the table. That one's going down Friday, February 16th. And a day later, Saturday, February 17th, my Arsenal take on fourth in the table, Manchester United. So we got 1 versus 2, 3 versus 4. Pretty big weekend in the WSL. A lot to watch this weekend. I'm excited.
Super into it. When Manchester City wins this match, they have the opportunity to go top. Now, they are 3 points behind Chelsea, so they'll tie them on points, but we're 2 goals behind them in goal differential. So there is a possibility that we, win 1-0 and we're still just trailing them in goal differential. Let me just tell you this. This is a learning podcast. We're getting into this league more. We're getting into, the FA in general, the FA Cup and the WSL over in England. If I were to tell you, I think it's real live that Manchester City wins a double this year. I'm not talking about Pep's squad.
Okay. I think it's possible.
I think it's live.
It's definitely live. So speaking of, your Manchester City drew Tottenham for the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. These matches are all going down on March 10th. Brighton and Hove Albion, they drew Manchester United. Everton drew Chelsea. And Leicester City drew Liverpool. So those are the 8. You probably have a good claim of being maybe the co-favorite or maybe just a slight 1B. We'll see. I think this match this Friday will be pretty telling. We'll get a really nice preview this weekend.
Hell yeah. Looking forward to it.